recording. We know that that's on the agenda. Your warning prompt and notice there that this meeting's being recorded helps us with minutes, and the audio will be uploaded to our MPO website as our custom as well. So your consent to being recorded is implied there by joining the meeting and being here. So thank you. Then Tina, if you want to go next.
Tina Heintzelman, Program Assistant with the Transportation Department.
I'm Jim Latier, I'm Mifflin County Planning Director.
Sean McLaughlin, Union County. Greg Moulter, Montour County.
Lincoln Kaufman, Snyder County. Frank Kerstetter, Union County.
Don Keel with the MPO. Brian Funkhouse with Michael Baker, consultant support with the MPO.
Kristen McLaughlin with the MPO.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. How about for those joining virtually? Anyone that this is your first time attending and you'd like to introduce yourself, please?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Morocco. I am one of the new transportation planners with the Watts MPO in Williamsport in Lycoming County, and happy to be here.
Thank you, Emily.
Good morning. My name is Sean Hurst. I'm Associate Project Manager with Larson Design Group, working out of their Sealands Grove office. This will be my first time attending.
Great. Good morning. Thanks, Sean.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
else.
This is Marvin here. I work with Pannoni, but on here representing the PennDOT LTAP program. It's my first time being here, so looking forward to it, and you'll hear from me in just a second too as part of the agenda.
Great. Thank you, Marvin. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. We'll go ahead and just segue into the next part of our business. This is item B. It's typical that we ask for the public forum if there's anything not on the agenda that anyone would like to mention at this time, as far as membership or guests here today. We like to offer that opportunity. Is there anything not on the agenda anyone would like to discuss? Okay, yeah, Jeff Eisman, please.
Yeah, this is Jeff from PA Soap. Just wanted to mention a quick update about the state budget. As folks know, we don't have one. The House did pass a bill, House Bill 1330, as amended. And then that was on Monday, and then Wednesday the Senate came back and basically looked at the bill and crossed everything out. So right now we're at a standstill. I would say you can look at, and I could put something in the chat on a chart that the House Appropriations Committee did for what was in 1330 before the crossouts, because I kind of think that's where they're starting, and they just go from there. So mass transit or public transportation is one of the holdups in terms of how much roads and bridges get. And there is another bill, this transportation specific, House Bill 1364, that the House had passed with, it was 100 of 102 of the Democrats and 7 House Republicans crossed over. So both of those are two of the biggest sticking points. At this point, there's no date of return, so negotiations are continuing. If you've done advocacy, keep doing it. If you haven't, you still have time between the governor's 5 regional offices, as well as the state legislature. And also wanted to mention there's a disability pride event in Williamsport at the Center for Independent Living at North Central PA next Saturday, July 26th, for folks that are interested. I think 10 to 11 is a parade that's near there, and then the event will actually Pride celebration with food and entertainment and things like that. I went last year, a nice event. That's 11 to 3 at the Center for Independent Living up in Williamsport. So, and I think that's it. I can take any questions. Oh, actually, there's one other thing on e-scooters. I mentioned this on a few calls. There is a House bill that came out in June, House Bill 1633 by Rep. Emily Kincaid, who's a Democrat from Allegheny. That would restart the e-scooter program in Pittsburgh and also include Scranton, which is our only second Class A city. It also includes third class cities, which I think Sunbury is one in this area. And I'm thinking there's at least one other one. but cities like Harrisburg, York, Scranton, it also allows for private ownership of e-scooters too. So, and then there is a Senate companion bill. The bill memo's out, but not the bill. Senator Devlin Robinson, a Republican from Allegheny County, has that out. So there has been some stuff going on. That's what I know at this point, transportation wise. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, we'll certainly hope for the best. It's not a protracted impasse here with the state budget and won't start impeding project delivery or reimbursement. So everyone remain optimistic, hopefully, and if there's anything you can do for that process, feel free. Next is item C on the agenda. It's approval of the past meeting minutes from May 9th. Assuming everyone's had a chance to review those, we would look for a motion to approve. Thank you, Sean, for the motion. Do we have a second? Oh, that was a close one. We'll give it to Jim. Let's hear. Jim, thank you for the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Thank you for that. Those will be uploaded to our website now that they're approved. Next is our typical business for item D, with our transportation improvement program amendments and administrative modifications. So we have a couple amendments in District 2 here. They begin on page 9 and also a second one on page 10. And we would ask for Mark Schultz, if you're so kind to unmute and describe those amendments for us, please.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. And good morning, everyone. First amendment on page 9 is to add a preliminary engineering phase for the US 22 bridge interest near Paul Mack Boulevard. We have about 3 to 4 bridges in that area that have seen some epoxy overlay deterioration. It's time to replace that, but with that replacement, there's a need for some bridge preservation work as well. So we're asking for the preliminary engineering phase to be added to the current tip and utilize STP federal funds for that interest. The second amendment on page 10 is for the use of safety funds, HSIP federal safety funds within the reserve line item for the SEDA COG District 2 tip. The intention here, we've are verifying at this time locations that have been flagged as lane departure concerns. We've had lane departure incidents and accidents in those areas. We're interested in utilizing and securing those funds in federal fiscal year 2025 to go towards those locations as a future construction project. Steve, did you want to proceed with the administrative actions at this time or take any kind of comment on the amendments?
Let's pause, see if there's questions, comments, and then go ahead and take the vote since the modifications, administrative modifications don't require any voting. So any questions? Jim has one for you here. Let's hear.
Yeah, the Long Hollow Run Bridge in Mifflin County was reduced by $161,400. Could you elaborate on that?
That was funds that were converted on the previous tip, so they were able to advance those funds, those federal funds on the previous tip, and it had something to do with the bid amount. We were able to get a low-cost bid savings, I believe, on that, and reduce some funds. So with that Long Hollow Bridge, we were able to release $161,400 to go back to the reserve line item, and a portion of that to be suggested or requested for this US 22 corridor.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mark? How many locations do you think roughly for the high friction surface treatment in Clinton County will be included there?
I guess I'm glad you asked that, Steve, because that's something that I should have elaborated on. That is not specifically Clinton County. Those are high friction surface lane departures that are being analyzed for both Clinton, Mifflin, and Juniata. We just have to incorporate a primary or a parent, and Clinton County was selected for this project. I think that we're looking at 5 sites overall.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we're seeing a ton of benefit. Obviously, we've been holding our road safety reviews, and we come out and meet with the counties on those, and, lane departures, addressing some of these curbs, and getting these treatments down, and really reduce especially the serious injury crashes. So, thanks for advancing those. Great treatment.
Oh, I will add one last thing for those lane departures. Once they are verified and we know that we're going to proceed, that will come back for information for the MPO board.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Any other questions before we entertain a vote? We'll just do them individually. The vote for the amendment on page 9, and then, page 9 and then page 10. So if there is interest, we look for a motion to approve the amendment as presented on page 9 for the US 220 Bridge Epoxy project.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Jim. Do you have a second?
Second.
Give that one to Brad, just to egg you out there. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you. Now for page 10, the high friction surface treatment projects that Mark was discussing. There'll be hopefully 5 sites identified across the counties. In District 2, we look for a motion to approve that new project. Brad, thank you for the motion. Do we have a second? Give that one to Greg. Thank you. All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you. Those are approved, and we'll cover those, the normal processing that needs to be done here after the meeting. Now, Mark, we're on to starting on page 11, running through 17 for the administrative modifications you'd like to cover.
Yes, the middle of page 11, we have new projects. These are protect funds that were awarded through the statewide discretionary fund. So we're initiating both preliminary engineering and construction. Our goal is to have these projects out to bid for construction before the end of next year. The 2 locations are Mifflin County, Mans Narrow. It's wall and rock slide there on both 1005 and 322. In Clinton County, it's for fill slopes and embankment improvements along the 120 corridor in Clinton County. And I believe it's a 6-mile stretch in which we're identifying the most prominent areas for that work. On the bottom of that page, you'll see de-obligations. These are completed phase federal funds in which we're able to return them to the current tip. In this scenario, we have NHPP federal funds and STP, State Transportation Program funds, that are coming back to the reserve line item to be used on other projects. Moving down to page 12, we have in the middle of that page, we have a low bid cost savings for the RAR. This is a bridge hit scenario in which we're doing work, and then we'll be seeking the reimbursement for that work from the insurance company of the individual involved. So we move down to page 13. We get into Clinton County T349 over Fishing Creek, Logan Township. This is a local bridge that is it's become active within the preliminary engineering phase. As we proceed with the reimbursement agreement with the local municipality, we are adding other phases, the remaining phases, to the tip. So the next number of administrative actions are for the addition of construction, final design, utility, and right-of-way phases, including local fund amounts that are guaranteed or used as a match amount for the federal funds being added to the tip. Moving down then to page 15, we have the addition in the middle or bottom. We have the addition of state match funds for the discretionary protect funds. As we look at those, it's a small portion of 20% match that goes towards the federal funds that have been added and increases the current D2 District 2 SEDA COG tip allocations. Bottom of that page is more de-obligations from completed projects for NHPP and STP, and continue with de-obligations on page 16. In the bottom of page 16, we have the addition of more local funds for the Mifflin County T350 over Kish Creek Bridge. And then at the very bottom of page 17 is an increase to cover AUC. AUC is accrued unbilled. These are cost overruns in which we need to cover those within the tip. We use the balances from some of the balances from the reserve line item and adjusted and are able to finalize those phases and those projects and eventually close them out. And that completes the administrative actions for D2.
Great, thank you, Mark. Thanks for advancing all those and all the kind of balancing act and the financial accounting there. Are there questions from any members for Mark on the administrative modifications? Okay, hearing none, those are the lesser items, do not require a vote. I wanted to mention here for our newer guests, we're sharing the main meeting PowerPoint. So this slide here just kind of shows those more significant projects. You'll be able to click on the one map status report links. Check out the Google Street View link. We try to get those that are like 500,000 or above for the most part, adjustments or catch the new amendments as part of this process. So when the packet was shared on Tuesday this week and the presentation links, these are available there electronically as PDF. So you can kind of click away with the materials and follow along here for our virtual participants. So wanted to highlight that. And then just to mention, I know we had an issue before, we're using Constant Contact now due to internal kind of IT security issues when we have to send out to larger groups such as we have for the MPO meeting notices. So if you're running any issues receiving those messages, let us know. Or if somehow maybe you unsubscribe to something from another department that uses Constant Contact and it affects us, just let us know. We want to make sure we address those in a timely fashion. We'll see if we can correct that or share it in another means if we run into any problems there. But I wanted to highlight that before we just see if there's anything else Mark wants to mention before we go to District 3.
No, thank you for all your support.
Thanks, Mark. Next, we have Chris King with us here from District 3. If you don't mind describing the amendment on page 18 for us, Chris.
Sure thing, Steve. This is a construction fund swap for we're swapping federal funds for state funds. The overall contract is about 1.2 million, I think. So we are, basically federalizing this project, which is it's a microsurfacing of Route 15 from Route 11 to the Union County line. So to be Monroe Township and Shamokin Dam Borough.
Great, thank you, Chris. Yeah, very high volume area there. So appreciate you getting that in the microsurfacing package. Any questions for Chris on this project amendment? If not, we would look for a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we'll give the motion to Lincoln, thank you, and the second to Sean. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Great, thank you. That is approved as presented on page 18. And then for any of the actions running on pages 19 to 27, Chris, if you'd like to highlight some of those.
Sure thing, Steve. I'll pick on a couple of these, and then, like always, if you have questions on something I don't talk about, just let me know, either during the meeting, later, or whenever you're comfortable. On page 1 of 9, the first one is adding the construction phase of an approved TIF project. And these are basically discretionary funds from the governor's office used for economic development. This particular project is for signal improvements and turn lane improvements on the strip in Shamokin Dam at the site of the old Phillips Motel, a pending Royal Farms gas station convenience store deal. So it's not SEDA COG money. It's governor's money. This has actually been around for a while. And to use it, they have to add it to the tip. So the next project down is it's just a mill and resurfacing on Route 405 with some bridge preservation work over the Susquehanna in Sunbury and Upper Augusta Township. It's a final design increase. The next project down is a project we have underway. We're in final design to address some leakage issues that we've been having in the cut and cover in Danville. I think we're also going to be addressing some lighting issues in the culvert. Going down to page, I guess it's 20 of 70. I wanted to highlight that a couple things here. One is TIFIA redistribution funding. These are funds that the federal government released to the states, obligation authority, unused, and then the states distribute it generally per their formulas, but also by availability. We were able to use some of the TIFIA funds from central office to advance funding on the Danville project, the corridor safety project. Doesn't really affect anything in the near term, but it frees up capacity in the outer years, 2028. So essentially we have less to carry over on the draft tip. So kind of free money in the future. Right below that is also free money to the MPO. We submitted, luckily the SEDA COG region in District 3 does not have a lot of slope stability, embankment, resiliency type projects. Most of our problems are in our northern tier regions, but we do have a slope failure on Route 15 between White Deer, Hole Creek, and the township line between White Deer Township and Gregg Township. And we got $750,000 to study this slope failure and how best to approach it. So very appreciative of that funding award from central office. If we go down to page, what page is this? I'm not sure actually. It's called, the project is SVRR RRX Northumberland County. This is a pretty big group rail crossing upgrade project. I think there's 15 crossings in Northumberland County. Again, from the Central Office Railroad Reserve, we got close to $500,000 to increase that project. So a third source of outside funds to the region. And I think that's probably all I would highlight. Everything else is, for the most part, just minor adjustments. But again, happy to talk about any of them.
Any questions for Chris on any of the modifications within District 3?
Yeah, Chris, I have a question on the Upper Augusta one. I think it was the second one you reported on. Can you go over that one just briefly, what that involves?
You scroll back up here. Yeah, that's the Church Street to Shikellamy Avenue project. That is, we're going to mill and resurface Route 405 from Church Street to Shikellamy Avenue. And we have bridge preservation work on the two bridges over that are on 405 over the river. So it's in Upper Augusta and it's also in the city.
Okay. I just was curious when I heard Shikellamy Avenue or in the Upper Augusta with the
Yeah.
Wawa going in place there in Sunbury and the elementary school. I know that intersection, and I think it's truly Market and Shikellamy Avenue. Is there any type of discussion happening with PennDOT and the city of Sunbury on that intersection?
You mean specifically due to the Wawa or?
Yeah, I just want to make sure if, and maybe it's not, I can reach out to the Sunbury city manager, but I'm just concerned with the traffic load at that intersection if there's a light needed, but I didn't know if that worked.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I will check with our permits office and see what the status of that. I'm sure there must be a TIS, so I'll get an update for you on where that's at.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's shown on our highway occupancy permit listing. It's a little small in the PDF version there, but we try to track that inventory of those. So you'll see a lot of certainly gas station activity there with the HOP reporting in the packet that begins on page 38. But yeah, thanks Chris for running that down with the traffic unit, and Lisa, thanks for your interest there. Obviously, safety and congestion impacts associated with all the ongoing development related to these roadway projects. Important. Thanks for bringing that out.
You bet.
Any other questions for Chris before we close down the District 3 administrative adjustments? Great, thanks, Chris. That finishes that. We still have a listing in here on page 28, just carrying things that have been entertained by the MPO in the past that have not made their way through to tip funding. So that access road in Milton Borough is still in the holding pattern there. But if anything breaks loose, we'll be sure to update that listing and share that with the members. Next, we're into item E. That's also for you, Chris, if you'd like to highlight the CSVT status reporting for the members.
Yep. Thanks again, Steve. Can y'all hear me? Just making sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Sound good.
All right. So the update for this bi-monthly period. So the CSVT structure over Granger's Road is essentially complete. Same with Cortland Drive over the 61 connector. That's nearly complete. The connector over the ramps to 11 and 15, that's nearly complete. CSVT over 11th Avenue, the decks are done, and the parapets and barrier are nearly complete. And right now we're placing posts for the noise wall. Over Stetler Avenue, they're preparing for the deck. Over the 61 connector, still working on the decks there. Over Park Road, they're doing deck prep. Over Attic Road, the substructure, the abutments, which are MSE walls, are just about complete. And I think the beams will be started to be set next week. Over Mill Road, they're working on the substructure, the MSE walls. The noise wall north of Granger's Road is complete. The noise walls, the posts and panels are still being set on the connector, 61 connector. And basically in total, there's 9 bridges and 4 noise walls. The contract will be complete by the end of the year. And at this point, the estimate is about 75% complete. For the southern section paving contract, for the work in the interchange areas, we have the permits now and the teams finalizing the right-of-way and utility relocations. and they are really hot and heavy into putting the bid package together. This project will be advertised by the end of the month, and then let this fall. So no change in the overall schedule. Southern section will be opened fall 27, and basically the work that's going to impact traffic on 11 and 15 will be complete when that section opens, but we still have the 61 connector to wrap up and complete over the course of 2028. One other thing I'd point out that I didn't highlight in the management actions was we had a $35 million cost increase on the construction phase that we went to the program management committee in Harrisburg, and were able to secure those funds. Those are also not funds from the region. I just wanted to point that out. So that's it. I think there was a tour recently that you were participated on, Steve, and maybe you want to speak to that.
Sure, yeah, I can highlight that. Last Friday, the Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber had its transportation summit, multimodal, so we hit various stops, the Penn Valley Airport, but then the CSVT Southern Section construction activity was the second stop, and it was good to get out there and see that in person. To drive along with the charter bus there, so a lot of great activity. I'm glad the weather's been pretty decent. I mean, we're always getting some kind of precipitation, but I'm glad they're making steady progress, the contractors, and it's really coming along. I would also note, I think on PennDOT's website, if you want to see current construction pictures or more recent, I think the summer construction photos and images are out there as well, if folks want to go see that, and check it out on PennDOTCSVT.com website. A lot of the kind of aerial photos that are done and supplied there are interesting to check out the activity. And I'm glad the central office funds came through there, but that's still keeping us under $1 billion total cost, I hope, right? Above that, I know that's kind of a milestone.
Yeah, we're under it for now.
Any other questions for Chris on the CSVT project? If not, we appreciate it. I think our last meeting was 65% overall, so it's gone up 10% there for the Southern Section Structures contract. So that's great for all the progress and momentum that they're building here.
Especially considered the weather. They've had some tough wet weather to work in.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that rundown and recapping. Next, advance us here. It's our item F, the normal staff report activity related to our work program and other things that we're coordinating on and cooperating with third parties on. We highlight those within the packet. Starts page 30 of this one, taking us through July events since May. So we're only going to touch on a couple of things here since several of these are going to be later agenda items today. First one I will hit is on the complete streets planning on page 31. So been continuing that process, coordinating with the Gannett Fleming consultant team. Appreciate all the county planning directors. I know you had outreach from them in the past month or so to collect your complete streets, bicycle, pedestrian priority projects for the master matrix and inventory, and then the web map. So we shared that at the Active Transportation Committee, the draft web map, and there might be a follow-up in the next week or so. Each of the counties from Michelle Brummer to discuss, accuracy of what's on the web map, and then for those that don't have a priority rating, whether it's a high, medium, low, to look to kind of fill that in. So appreciate all your engagement on that process. That'll help us to develop a prioritization plan for complete streets projects and be a nice interactive web map for use by us as a regional planning organization and agency, and hopefully serve you at the county levels as well. That's that update. And also for the coordinated transit plan we adopted late last year, just to make that tracking implementation sheet more suitable and easier to update and report on for ourselves and for the membership. That was a new step that was taken to get that tracker into place like we have for the strategic plan. and the electric vehicles study of late, focusing on those implementation items. Next, I will mention on page 33, the Green Light Go program funding round. Yeah, that's information we had before, is those should hopefully be announced here in summer 2025. So as that comes out, we'll make sure we forward it off to all the members. You can see what kind of traffic signal projects are being approved by PennDOT in that most recent round. And on the multimodal fund side, the comments obviously we had shared on behalf of the MPO for the most recent PennDOT round. And I would suspect maybe come late summer, early fall, we might hear on those awards from PennDOT, and we'll share those as soon as we get those as well. The DCD multimodal application deadline is coming up here, approaching fast on July 31st. We don't always get as much information on those projects, but sometimes they cross over with the PennDOT side, or they're related to other projects that we know from long range plan or transportation alternative set aside. So we'll monitor that situation. It's usually November at the earliest we would hear on awards from that DCD side of the multimodal fund. And then on the transportation alternative set aside, I'll just open this up to Kristen if you want to highlight some things, since there's already been some activity and sharing the information on the program guidance, but just to touch on that for members with the timetable here for the transportation alternative set aside program.
Sure, so that has opened as of Monday. There was a webinar, I believe on the 9th. I don't know if they make that public, once it was recorded and such. They are requiring a pre or draft application. I think that was required, last round for the first time. But that is due on September 5th. And then in between that and the final applications, which are due on October 31st, there has been, during the last round, I assume this round as well, a coordination meeting with the district representatives, someone from the MPO, which is usually me, and the applicant project sponsor, to talk about the project, hone in on any issues that the application may have and get a little bit more competitive. So then final applications are due October 31st, and after that, we will eventually get access to them, and the MPO will submit comments by, I think, the end of January, around January 23rd. And in between that time frame, probably around between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we will have the typical MPO subcommittee, task the subcommittee to hear the presentations from the project sponsors and then vote on the ranking for those projects that will then be submitted to PennDOT.
Thank you, Kristen. Thanks for all the coordination on that. We know there's certainly interest in several different projects since the last round, and hopefully we'll get a really good crop of competitive projects coming in. Other settings, forums, we're always trying to promote this and give people advance notice so they can start to develop their projects and get some early design work underway, public engagement activities and such as well. So we'll hope for good results and appreciate all the investment of the members as you review and comment on those as we have that chance to give them star ratings and provide additional commentary and flavor on the local context for the statewide selection committee. So just that reminder, we don't have our own regional allocation like years and years ago that we used to award from. This all goes into the competitive statewide pot, and I think it's $80 million this round, which is more than the last round. So hope for the best, and we'll see some implementation there of bicycle pedestrian and other TA set aside projects. The other thing I was going to mention kind of related to bicycle pedestrian is on page 35. So the trail demand story map reporting. Our current round is in Columbia Montour counties for the data collection effort. So we'll get out to those that are manual here probably early October timeframe, collect those, bring those in. We'll get Sam kind of acquainted to the process of how the story map was developed to share the data and provide that off to members, and then get out to deploy these trail counters at other locations in the fall. So our focus will be Mifflin, Juniata, and Snyder counties. So again, if you have good candidates, we have a little bit of a running list of potential sites there. So feel free to let me know if there's locations you want to get some bicycle pedestrian traffic volumes on, for just general planning purposes, help you out with grant applications or whatever the case may be. We'll be glad to entertain those because we now have 10 units available, since we purchased 2 additional EcoCam of the automated pyro boxes. Ones right now we have are on Bloomsburg, and we've been able to report regularly to Lisa Doley at the town of Bloomsburg with those results and pretty high usage. Pretty impressive. You know, we can check that and generate reports very quickly from the software online, get alerts or notifications if there's anything being noticed as anomalies and such as well. So we're glad to have 2 more of those automated ones that we can instantly know what the volumes are like and give you reporting on. So I wanted to put that plug out there. And then now we'll turn it over to Don to highlight some of the LTAP activities, please.
Thank you, Steve. I serve on the LTAP Advisory Committee, and we have 2 meetings a year with the LTAP folks that are responsible for developing classes and coordinating things at the state level. And this past spring, during our meeting, just a couple things I wanted to mention. They're always looking at updating their classes and developing new classes. So during this year, they've been in the process of piloting and then later in the year offering full versions of some new classes. One of them is called Pavement Roadway Management. I'm not sure that those are scheduled yet. That may still be under development, but 2 of them that are available. One is called Asphalt Roads Common Maintenance Problems, and the other is Drainage Pipe and Culvert Replacement and Installation. So locally here and in the MPO region, we've gotten on the list to be able to get instructors signed up to do some of those classes. A few of them have not been scheduled yet because they're still in the pilot phase, but we're going to probably be able to do that this fall. I think we'll end up with about 6 or 7 classes this fall. Ones that are scheduled in October 2nd, 9th, and 14th are winter maintenance at the Point Township building just across the river in Northumberland. And then the asphalt road maintenance new class that will be held at East Buffalo Township building on the 9th. And it will be over in Ferguson Township in Center County on the 14th. So we will be announcing those classes through emails, especially when some of the newer ones get scheduled. So that will be coming soon. The only other thing I wanted to mention is at the advisory committee meeting, we get updates on not only new classes under development, but some, I think, pretty interesting developments that are related to LTAP that are coming out of PennDOT. So our idea for today was to invite one of the LTAP instructors to give some updates on these various topics. So in just a little bit, you'll be hearing from Marvin Ta, who's from Pinoni, and he's an excellent instructor. It does on different topics, and he's going to run down some various things that are coming out of PennDOT that are LTAP related, but also just of general interest. So I'll stop here for now on LTAP, but please get your municipalities signed up, or if you have any requests for classes, please let me know, as always.
Thanks, Don. Those mentioned maybe for the benefit of others, some of the county planners, I think, get out to the conventions in the fall. So I know you're advertising, we'll hit some of those. So sometimes those, we collect training interest as part of the county association of township officials. So look for Don if you're at some of the ones that he's at, and collecting training needs and tech assist needs as part of that. And the fiscal year 24-25 report is in draft mode. Don's prepared that. We'll get that as a link in the future and make sure you're all receiving copies of that for the performance and the data related to LTAP for the most recent fiscal year that just closed June 30th. So appreciate it. Thank you, Don. Within this section, the staff reporting, the earlier reference, the highway occupancy permit application activity is in the table starting on page 38. And then the same for the scoping forms for the traffic impact studies on page 40. Our progress reporting that we have access to for the TA set aside project from all the active projects begin on page 41. And that concludes that section. So we'll just see if there's any comments on any other conclusions in the packet or other staff activity? Yes, great.
Steve, I have a question on these, project, these set aside projects. I'm talking preferably here to the one of Danville Borough.
Mhm.
We've been holding this project in a status of unknown since 2018. How long do we continue to carry these with no progress?
There can be other impacts there. Certainly, they should be obligated, within 2 years. I think at that time there was maybe a little bit more leeway than the more recent guidance, and they ran into those other external kind of constraints and things with floodway and DEP and.
Well, I understand. I mean, I've been part of the conversations in Danville about some of the, well, we don't want to do this. We're not sure about that. All this engineering stuff. But if I recall, there was a time when this board, if they were not ready, if they did not have it prepared to go, we de-obligated those funds and put it to a project that was ready. And I'm just concerned, it's a good project, but how long are we gonna be allowed to carry this thing with no progress?
Sure. Yeah, if there was a consensus from the board, yeah, the warning letters could go out, establish the timetables. If they're not met, the funds could be potentially removed and pulled away. I've not heard from the central office folks about, pulling the funds. They monitor all the obligation activity, obviously, and I've not been tied into a lot of the design activity or where things stand now, so I'm sure. Chris, are you familiar with anything that Aaron Chris has been working on related to?
You're talking about the
Levy,
levee canal trail?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't move for a while. It is moving now.
Okay,
Yeah, it's definitely moving now. We just got, I believe, a construction plan into check. So I think we're looking at construction next year on it. I know there was a couple things. Well, for starters, I think they had to find some more money locally for the design end. But I do think there were also some floodplain changes that caused some redesign. So I do agree with you. It sat for a while, but it's definitely moving now. I've seen a couple of submissions come in on it. We've had some safety reviews and I can confirm the schedule, but I believe it's supposed to be under construction next year.
okay. Well, I did notice that in the way it's listed here, the 26 is got a lot of projected activity across the board. And that'd be great. I was just concerned that, if we're following our own rules, I'm glad somebody's updating me as to why it's still on the books and hasn't been pulled.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those, there's very incremental progress, but yeah, there certainly should have been more breaking loose, and glad it's gotten to this date. And it's been a regionally significant obviously project and tied to all those kinds of priorities for a long period of time. But we can make sure we're honoring obviously that.
Well, I appreciate the update. I'm glad to see that it will stay. I was just concerned it might get pulled.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, and deliverability. Yeah, project readiness is always the highest criterion, for the TA set aside program. So we want to make sure that those implementation timetables are met, and hopefully anything that's selected can get to the bidding within 2 years. And when that's not occurring, then other steps need to be taken. So thank you.
Steve, if I can. I'm sorry, Steve, this is Bob Stout with the Monterey Rec Commission. So quickly to address this, one of the challenges has been a change in paid staff and a change in borough council makeup. So we've had to try to make sure that this project did not get dropped off, but I'm of the same opinion that they are moving forward toward 2026. So it's important to our organization, and we've been trying to keep an eye on it too. Greg, to the best of my knowledge, it is going to go forward. There is some local resistance, but those who are in favor of it, I think, have prevailed as of now, at least.
Good.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
These dates haven't changed in at least this year, so they've been moving steady in terms of the obligated date and the advertising date.
Good. Any other questions for the staff activity reporting? Good. There's nothing further. We're up to item G. This will be an action item to approve the regional operations plan, and we're gonna walk through that. We had it presented in the past, and it kind of got finalized since it was flat presented by PennDOT. So thank you, Kristen.
Yes, I believe at the March meeting, we had a presentation on the ROF and TISMO projects and the transportation system management and operations. So in May of this year, PennDOT did publish the 2025 ROF. It's an update to the one that was published in 2018, and there was an interim update in 2021. They're now on a every 4 to 5 years update cycle with an interim update every 2 years. So this is a significant update to the previous plan. There are 13 new projects that are added to the ROP for this region, and also includes project status and how those projects are moving forward that were on the previous ROP. So the majority of them in our region are moving forward. It's, obviously sometimes it's looking. So, and the ROP has had a particular focus this year on integrated corridor management, or ICM, which seeks to improve the incident management and maximize the available capacity of the important parallel corridors. So, for example, if there's an accident on Interstate 80, how do we efficiently get people from Interstate 80 to and also there's an emphasis on safety-related projects that use dynamic curve warnings, queue warning systems, as well as the variable speed limit signs. Those have proven to be pretty successful in reducing overall accidents where they've been deployed during pilot programs. So as I mentioned, this adds 13 new projects for the region, and those projects are in every county actually except Snyder, but there's obviously a lot of CSVT stuff that's been going on and updating TISMO projects on that corridor. So I could talk more about any of the projects. There's a lot of signal upgrades, such as there's those listed for Danville signal upgrades. They're at the 54 intersection. There's some, Lewisburg would get a CCTV at 15 and 192, and those go to the central command center so that if there is an incident, they can actually sometimes automatically change the timing of the signals to make sure the traffic. So at this, if there's any questions, we can address them, but otherwise, we'll seek approval of the ROP, situation ROP for 2020.
Any questions for Kristen, or hopefully y'all had a chance to click on the link for the master PDF document. If you scroll through all the background to at least get to the project listing that are established as priorities. So we know we're already moving forward. We've had discussions with PennDOT District 2 about some of these operational plan priorities for a capital funding initiative through the TIP. So there's kind of a set aside $10 million statewide for ITS, other operational improvements, and applications will come in from the MPO to the central office team to review and rank and approve funding through that set aside. So that has a direct linkage to this ROP and how it's integrating those priorities for that. So hopefully we'll see some implementation. It can be hard to do a standalone operations project, as you would imagine, for those kinds of activities. So they often get integrated into another TIP project, like Chris mentioned the CSVT with the devices that are going through that, or if you're doing a major I-80 reconstruction project, to include them, incorporate them into those. So this kind of capital funding initiative is really nice to bring other funds into our region for operations. So any questions, comments for Kristen before we would vote to approve the regional 2025 ROP plan? Yes, Lisa, please.
Yeah, I just want to express, like, from a municipality standpoint, we've had difficulties with having multiple vendors on projects. I know probably Chris King or PennDOT, they're aware of the issue locally. And I would just like to say, like, as the other municipalities in our area progress through these grant funds, I think it's a great thing to, have updated equipment. But what we found is a lot of these companies that are coming in from larger cities don't really give the time for the punch list items. So our retiming here in Bloomsburg, we started 3 years ago, and we still have 3 signals on our Main Street area that are not working correctly for the lead pedestrian time. So it's great to get the funding, but I also think locally we're experiencing vendors that are capable of completing the project in its entirety.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm not always plugged into that process. So any others experiencing similar things with the vendors at least I mentioned? Is that pretty much for Main Street and Route 11? You're doing those signal upgrades, Chris, or Lisa, for the leading pedestrian intervals?
Yeah, we were doing the retiming of all of our signals, and then we had concentrated efforts just on 2 areas that were improvements to the whole controller device. But I will definitely say if we're experiencing it, we only had 1 bid on the project, and then our second grant fund was for the central station to have the detour come through Bloomsburg. We tried to put it out to bid twice, and we got no bidders. So we had to go the legal route to select basically contractors to get us through to the end. So maybe just like a quick email to those other municipalities. If we experienced it here in Bloomsburg, I just would be concerned that with the grant funds and timelines at PennDOT, it's kind of a crucial point to get it done.
Understood. Thank you. Chris, are you hearing that from maybe Aaron, Chris, or the traffic union as well?
Not really. Maybe I'm not understanding the concern. Is this that they're like whoever is designing a project for you is not specifying the equipment you use, or?
What I heard, it was mostly on the vendor side of no one locally being able to put in a bid. So a lot of the people that are putting in these bids for the traffic devices are Williamsport, Wilkes-Barre, and they have enough work in their area versus coming down to Bloomsburg.
Okay.
And a
So
lot
it's
of times
more of
our
it's a
projects,
contractor thing, not a materials
yes,
thing.
yeah.
Gotcha.
I don't think it's a material. I mean, obviously there's delays when it comes to that, but I think it's more on the contractor having the time to come into our area. So I don't know how we improve that or what the solution looks like. I just know if we experienced it, it's not probably going to get any better unless locally there's a company that can help us out.
Yeah, I mean, the contractors have to meet certain, pre-qualification requirements to work on the state system. So if you have local contractors that, can do the work, they just need to get qualified. I don't know that process, but if you know of firms that would be interested, we can probably get them connected to the people that could maybe help them through that.
Is there like a sheet or something, Chris, or someone that I can contact at PennDOT to kind of get that message out to the local contractors?
I'll talk to our contract management unit and see what I can find.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for raising that. Thanks, Chris, for the follow-up. If there's nothing further from virtual or in the room, we look for a motion to approve the 2025 regional operations plan for the Central Group. Motion by Jim, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Lincoln. Thank you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you. That's listed on our website as part of our resources. And it's an action we'd like to take, on behalf of PennDOT, same with all the other planning partners that are covered in the central region plan. So thank you for that. Thanks, Kristen, for the update. Next, we're getting into the aforementioned presentation from Marvin Toff about the PennDOT publications and design manual updates. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing, Marvin, if you want to take control there and share your presentation, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Steve. And thank you again, Steve and Don, for the flexibility on having me here today. I apologize I was not part of your scheduled programming, but regardless, it's still going to be a lot of good information that I hope all of you can take back to your municipalities or at least raise some awareness in. And for those of you who don't know me or may not have seen me in any of the PennDOT LTAP classes. Again, my name is Marvin. My background is in traffic engineering, so I do everything that's traffic related. Now, of course, understanding that PennDOT LTAP is obviously more than just the traffic side. It's everything transportation related, including the maintenance side as well. But my background is everything traffic, so the signage, pavement markings, and traffic signals. So with that, one of the things that we pride ourselves in with the PennDOT LTAP program is that we offer everybody essentially, like what I like to say in our courses, the latest and greatest information, whether it's coming from PennDOT or Federal Highway. And it's important that we actually, let me actually share my screen real quick so you can at least see the PowerPoint. Give me 1 second. Okay, Steve, can you confirm you're seeing that okay?
Yep, that's coming through. Thanks. You want to just hit the
Okay, hold on.
slideshow?
Yeah, let me see what happens when I hit the slideshow button. Is that still looking okay?
It didn't transition yet for us.
All right, hold on. Bear with me just a second. Okay, how about now?
Looks great. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks, Steve. So as I was saying, it was very important that we actually, first of all, share with all of you these updates related to traffic engineering that both PennDOT and Federal Highway has been doing. If you've been keeping up with everything that's been going on, there's been a lot of stuff that's been happening, actually. It's actually been keeping us super busy on the LTAP front this summer. It's almost as if everyone decided to update everything at the exact same time, which is great because it's a lot of new stuff. We continue to learn things, and it's important that we continue to update everything from a safety perspective. But from an LTAP instructor perspective, it can be difficult at times because a lot of our municipal audience do rely on us for, making sure that they are doing everything properly from the traffic perspective, installing signs correctly, doing the appropriate studies. And, they put a lot of trust in us to kind of give them that information. Anytime they give us a call or shoot us an email, they know that they are getting the correct info in terms of what they're supposed to do in terms of the process from PennDOT and Federal Highway. So like I said, that's why we pride ourselves a lot in our classes in telling everybody, hey, look, you keep up with the LTAP stuff in terms of our webinars and our classes. I promise you that it's the most updated information that you can get out there, right? And it's also one of the things that from all of us instructors here at LTAP, we're also not afraid to tell people that we don't know the answer, right? But that also doesn't mean we can't figure it out for them or try to find, the best person to answer that. So anyways, with that, I'll give you a brief overview of some of the changes that's been going on. And I know that we have a pretty packed agenda, and so I'm not sure if we'll have too much time for questions, but more than happy to discuss further offline too. I'll share my email with everybody so you have my contact info. Of course, you can also go through Don as well, as he is in charge of the LTAP for your area. And, I know Don, Steve really well from doing a lot of these LTAP courses and LTAP Tech Assist within the region. So, okay, so one of the first things, in case you didn't know, is related to traffic calming. For the longest time, we've relied on an independent PennDOT publication called the Traffic Calming Handbook. This book was great. It gave you guidance on what you were supposed to do, first of all, before you install traffic calming, right? As I'm sure some of you may get a lot of requests related to, hey, people are speeding on my roads, and things like speed humps have become super popular, particularly in our state. There's not really any data that supports it, but just kind of based on the requests that we have been seeing, speed and just the installations that we've seen, speed humps are probably one of the most utilized traffic calming devices within our state. Not just permanent installation, but we're seeing a lot of the temporary installations as well through the rubber materials that you can purchase to try them out beforehand. But this book has guided us for the longest time related to traffic calming, and more recently, well, first of all, this book no longer exists, by the way, right? You try and go on the PennDOT traffic signal portal and try to open or even search for this book online, you will get that note to the right that says this book is no longer exists. It's been eliminated. For new guidance, check out this publication, okay? That publication is publication 13, which is a relatively newer PennDOT publication. Now, in this publication, you will find a lot of different items related to, for instance, there's a chapter on bicycle, right? There's a chapter on pedestrians, which is currently still in development. We'll get to that in a second. But if you go to chapter 18, that is the latest and greatest on guidance for traffic calming within Pennsylvania. Not only does that chapter detail the process and the study requirements, again, before you go out and install speed humps, right? Because there are certain criteria that you have to assess to make sure that your roadway is a candidate for traffic calming. Plus, doing that also helps justify to a lot of your residents as to why you installed speed humps on Street A versus Street B, okay? So that's very important to understand. And then as you continue through that chapter, it starts to showcase the different devices that are approved for use in Pennsylvania, both on state roadways and on local roads. And I'll say state roadways with an asterisk too, because there are certain other things you have to go through, for instance, getting PennDOT approval. But nonetheless, for the most part, any traffic calming that you want to use should be included in that chapter 18 traffic calming. If it's not in there, then it's probably best to assume it's likely not an approved device. So some things you have to be aware of when you are purchasing from vendors. I've already helped a few municipalities this summer, and unfortunately, some of them purchased the wrong items that are not approved for use on our public roadways. And just real quick too, for your benefit, I will actually show you the best way to get this traffic calming book, as well as all of the other updates that I'm about to share. So again, are you still able to see this, Steve?
Yes.
As I switch the browser. Okay, cool. So good practice too is to always get your study forms and any kind of PennDOT publications related to traffic from PennDOT's traffic signal portal, because again, any updates that occur will be updated in this signal portal as well. So that publication I was referencing, you go to publications and you go under this publication 13, the contextual roadway design, right? Click on that. Again, you see all the updates that have happened since 2021, I guess, when it was initially released. This is why it's so important to get all the publications from the signal portal. You could Google Pub 13 Design Manual 2, you could Google traffic calming, and might be a crapshoot as to which one comes up on your search results. So I always tell everybody in the courses, you should go through this every time you want to access a publication or a traffic study form. So anyways, we'll click on the April 2025. So just a few months ago, okay, so I am going to go to the table of contents real quick. So you can see there's all sorts of good information on here and all sorts of different chapters related to just our transportation in general. And you will notice some of them are still in development. Like for instance, you see this pedestrian one, okay, to be added later. It is still in development, right? So if I go into chapter 18, traffic calming, I click on that, there you have it. And then you can scroll through, it talks about everything related to traffic calming, okay. Now, one of the new things in addition to this update is that they as in PennDOT, developed a traffic engineering study form that never existed for traffic calming before. So we call those TE forms. It simply stands for traffic engineering and then whatever number. So as you can see in here, it's got all of the study forms for anything you can think of that requires a traffic engineering study, right? So if I scroll a little bit, you can see TE 125 relates to traffic calming. Again, this form never existed before. It's brand new and it came out with the chapter 18 update. So just want to show you what that looked like real quick. Again, I'll scroll through and it's got a lot of different prompts that you should consider going through before you even install traffic calming. And what I really like about this is very, very important, particularly the outreach, right? Sometimes we don't think about the cons that can occur with traffic calming as it relates to things like emergency services, right? Or even the actual residents that may live on that street, right? So this part of this traffic study form, you can see it even asks you, have you contacted some of these key stakeholders that should be part of your discussions when you are considering things like speed humps. You can see on here, emergency services, obviously, your maintenance folks, okay? So things to keep in mind for that. All right, so let me get back to this, move on a bit from traffic calming. Again, I explained that already. And then this class is still, from our perspective, is still in development. This is proposed to be a full day class. So we're thinking about a 6-hour class, 4 hours of instruction in the morning, and then about a 2-hour or so workshop in the end to actually practice that traffic study form, that traffic engineering study form that pretty much all of the municipalities will have to go through whenever we are considering traffic calming on our roadways. So again, still in development. Hopefully it'll be completed by, not this summer, but we do have a kickoff meeting and a pilot scheduled for the fall. And I think the pilot is expected to be sometime in 2026. I think January, if I remember correctly. So hopefully by next spring, this class will be available for offerings for Dawn to schedule within your region. Okay, so again, highly recommend it once it does come out for anything related to traffic calming. Okay, moving on. Another update that occurred was with the AASHTO bike guide. AASHTO is simply the, oh gosh, hopefully I get the acronym right. I can never remember it, but something along the lines of the Association American Safety Highway Transportation Officials. They pretty much have this, what we call the bike guide, that is essentially shapes a lot of the bicycle facilities and the design that you see, not just in our state, but across the entire country. A lot of designers rely on this one for, like, as I mentioned, bicycle design, like your standard bike lanes, all the way to anything grade separated or physically separated bike lanes. The 2012 version, we've been using that for the longest time. And as of, I guess you can see now, the 2024 edition was released right around the same time the MUTCD was sort of updated as well. But if you want more information on this, we did conduct a 1-hour, what we'd like to call a drop-in session. It's almost like a webinar, if you want to think of it that way. But we did back in, I guess, last spring, or I guess 2 springs ago, we did a webinar or drop-in session on some of the key updates that you want to pay attention to. And in this case, remember how I told you we're not afraid to say we don't know something, right? So in this case, the drop-in and the webinar was actually led by a representative from Tool Design, who was actually the prime for updating the entire AASHTO bike guide. So they're the experts on it. They would know much better than us. And so we're very happy that they agreed to deliver this to our LTAP audience. But anyways, it's okay that you missed the live session of it, because all of our webinars and drop-in sessions are on our LTAP website. And so you can watch the recording and get the quick 1-hour update on it. So likely we do have a bike workshop. It's about a 2-hour or so workshop that we've developed based on this bike guide. So likely we will have to go through and update that. But we are actually, more importantly, since we are in Pennsylvania, we are actually waiting for chapter 14. Remember, in that same publication that had traffic calming, we're waiting for that update to go through, as of course on the PennDOT end, there will need to be some updates in that chapter related to bicycles to kind of comply and be in accordance with that AASHTO bike guide. But for now, if you are still using items in that chapter 14 related to bike facilities, that should be okay. Nothing too crazy related to bikes, but certain key nuances that we have to pay attention to. Okay, but again, I can't stress enough to check out that drop-in session related to some of the key updates that we saw. Okay, Another big one, again, is that Chapter 13 I already referenced, right? It is currently not out yet. It's still in draft form. This is the same, by the way, same publication still that you saw with traffic calming, okay? The pedestrian facilities one, this update was in response to all of the ADA stuff that you saw. You know, you may have heard that, oh, ADA was updated, it's finally adopted, things like that. The update to this Chapter 13 related to pedestrian facilities in that PennDOT publication is in response to that 2023 update for ADA. Okay, so this is actually a course that is currently undergoing an update as well. We worked on this pretty much most of this summer. Our ADA course, which is a 4-hour course, it kind of talks through things like, when do I have to update curb ramps? Is resurfacing something that triggers ADA? Things like that, right? And then it kind of also shows people how to do curb ramp inspections too, right? PennDOT has a whole Excel study guide or study form that helps with inventory and also helps inspectors with inspecting ADA curb ramps. So we are also in the process of updating this as well. We can't really release the updated course yet until, of course, Chapter 13 gets finalized, because although we do have the draft edition for our purposes of updating the course, it doesn't really make sense for us to also release the updated LTAP course because none of you will be able to see Chapter 13, so it's not very conducive to what you all need to do in terms of ADA requirements. So stay tuned for that. That one is coming soon. Okay, so like I said, undergoing some updates right now. Okay. Hopefully I am not going too fast. Please just chime in, let me know, hey, can you slow down a bit and whatnot. I know this is a lot of information dump, but it is also very important, and it's tough sometimes to try and get everything in within a 20-minute time frame or so, right? So I like I said, I can't stress enough of checking out our LTAP classes. If you've never been through one, you can talk with Steve and Don, because they are very, very informative. And it's crazy sometimes. You wonder, 4 hours on stop signs, how could you possibly do that? But trust me, sometimes it's not even enough to talk about some of the things we need to talk about as it relates to our local roads. Okay, the big one, as I'm sure some of you who have been paying attention to it, the Federal Highway MUTCD, Manual and Uniform Traffic Control Devices, underwent a huge update. As you can see, for the longest time, us and the rest of the country have been using the 2009 edition up until the end of 2023, which was when this book was released. You can see December 2023. As part of this, Federal Highway gave each DOT 2 years to officially adopt this manual, right, for use on our, not just our local roads, but also our state roads as well. If you're not familiar with the MUTCD, just a quick background, this book ensures uniformity across our entire country, right? This book is the reason why when you go from Pennsylvania to Hawaii, traffic signals are still going to be red, yellow, green. Stop signs are still going to be 8 sides with a red sign, right? So it ensures uniformity across our entire country. Otherwise, you would have to get a license for every time you cross state borders, right? Because we're doing different things. So that's not the case. But anyways, this update was long overdue and very happy that it finally got done. So as I mentioned, we have 2 years. We, as in Pennsylvania and the rest of the country, have 2 years to officially adopt this. As of right now, PennDOT has not officially adopted this yet. So theoretically, you would be okay using the 2009 edition that you're familiar with, right? We have until the end of this year. So by January of 2026, it is expected that our state is using this 2023 edition of this MUTCD. I go back and forth using both, right? Because there are certain things that aren't too different, but also certain things that are different. So my recommendation would be to try and use and get familiar with the new edition, because there are certain things that, yes, there might be very small items that may not be used in PA, but for the most part, I can't see why certain things aren't going to get approved, right? I know PennDOT has been hard at work with developing a lot of committees internally. I was part of the temporary traffic control committee, right? We, as a committee, reviewed the section in the new one related to temporary traffic control to make sure that all of our existing PennDOT publications are in compliance with this. So, just from my experience on that, I can't imagine the other committees being too different, but I can't imagine something in the new MUTC that we would say, absolutely not, we're not going to do that, right? So my recommendation would be to do your best to try and start incorporating the new MUTCD into everything you've been doing on a local perspective. For instance, one of the biggest changes is how far in advance you place things like warning signs, right? So pedestrian ahead signage or curve warning signs, right? So those distances change. There's a new table related to that. There's actually even a new tables related to how you do curve studies, right? That is not in the old MUTCD. So that's what I mean by there are certain things that change, and it is very important from a safety perspective. For instance, curve safety, which is big in our state because one of the most prevalent crashes that we see on Pennsylvania roadways are hit fixed object type crashes, which kind of makes sense because we have a lot of trees, we have a lot of rural roads, we have a lot of horizontal curves, but also vertical curves as well. That contributes to the safety concerns we see on our roadways, both state and local. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then, of course, the curves class obviously is another thing that we are updating as part of this MUTCD update too. Okay. Okay. Another thing too, I'm almost done. I promise. Just give me a few more minutes. Another big item that was updated. Actually, it says end of May, but it's already in place, right? You'll see it on the traffic signal portal. There is new guidance on how you evaluate crosswalks. Okay. Specifically related to mid-block crossings and even trail crossings, right? So mid-block crossings traditionally has always had its own separate traffic engineering study form, right? That form for mid-block crosswalks has been updated, okay? And there is a strike-off letter that supplements PennDOT's traffic engineering manual. That's publication 46. That contains all the information related to conducting a study for mid-block crosswalks, okay? In that strike-off letter, you will find two brand new tables that helps you with crosswalk assessment. The first table will tell you, actually, let me just show you. I'm a visual learner, as I'm sure a lot of you would probably appreciate too. So rather than just me telling you describing what it looks like, let me actually just show you what it looks like real quick. So here's publication 46, right? There's a strike-off letter related to the mid-block crosswalk section. So it's the second one right here. Okay. If I scroll down a little bit, bear with me for just a second. Let me find these tables. Okay. So obviously there's a whole flow chart on how you assess crosswalks and trail crossings, but this is what I want to get at. These are brand new tables that have been updated by PennDOT. So the first table will tell you, based on speed, volume, lane configuration, is your crossing location condition A, B, C, D, etc. This table just simply tells you, should you mark the crosswalk, should you not mark the crosswalk? And then if the answer is, yeah, you should mark the crosswalk, how should you supplement that crosswalk? So with signage or physical traffic calming measures to make it even safer based on, again, speed, volume, lane configuration. So again, check out these charts, check out that study form whenever you get a chance. Again, also you can check out our crosswalk course that we are also in the process of updating this summer, okay, to reflect the new changes from PennDOT. Okay, so I'm very happy with those tables just because a lot of times, people don't realize that when you mark a crosswalk, you're telling people, and this is one of the things I'm super passionate about, by the way, pedestrians. But when you mark a crosswalk, you're telling people, yes, you should cross right here. We are telling you this is the best place to cross, right? So that's a really strong statement to tell people this is the best place to cross. So having these two charts to help us guide our decision making, even a simple question like, should I even mark this crosswalk or not, could go a long way in improving safety. Okay. And then a couple other things. There's a new update happening as well in PennDOT's traffic engineering manual related to the ATV policy. You can see the chart to the right, but all it's doing is essentially allowing ATVs to use more both local and state routes, from a legal perspective. So kind of updating that. Again, that's all part of that traffic engineering manual update as well. So whether you knew it or not, we did have, by the way, an ATV policy statewide, right? So they updated that, and that is live, so you can actually go and check that out. And then the last thing I have for all of you is, I'm sure this is a concern for a good bit of you, but bridge strikes by trucks has been a huge problem, especially even where I'm at too. I live in Philadelphia right now full time, but I go back and forth a lot between Harrisburg as well, just because my folks are there. But we see these all the time as well. And then also in our trucks course that we deliver, just hearing the local stories from people, does show that yes, this is a concern. What are the good solutions? What are some of the countermeasures that we can implement to further prevent this, right? Because unfortunately, certain things need to happen that go above the sign, right? The no truck sign, it only goes so far, right? Similar to a speed limit sign, it only goes so far. We almost have to look at different techniques, potentially even more physical techniques to kind of reduce these types of crashes and these types of safety concerns. Okay. Then last thing I have for all of you is PennDOT. PennDOT is also developing a policy on implementing street eateries, which is based on the Philadelphia guide. I would be interested in seeing what this state policy is going to look like, because as a resident in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia guide, in my opinion, is not the greatest, because when COVID happened, you saw a lot of businesses put out things like to the right there. That's actually right next to the apartment I used to live in. But you saw a lot of restaurants and business owners put out a lot of things that look like that to the right, without a lot of guidance, because the city had nothing on how streeteries were supposed to be designed and how they were supposed to be set in the roads, things like that. Well, probably a year or so later, maybe 2021 or so, the city decided to actually develop a guide, and it was actually very restrictive because it went through a lot of permitting and a lot of fees and even different processes that these businesses had to go through. And so unfortunately, most people started to tear down their streeteries because they did not want to go through that process that was set by the city, which was very unfortunate, because I actually loved seeing these streeteries and dining in them, and it was nice to be in that open air space. But that's why I'm saying I'd be curious to see what the state will develop when it comes to streeteries on our roadways. So that's it for me. As I said, I don't know if we have too much time for questions or not, because it is a pretty stacked agenda. I'll leave that up to Steve, but I'm more than happy to share my email in the chat as well for further conversations.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Marvin. A lot of comprehensive information and updates there. Appreciate all you do, helping municipalities, and then the technical assistant visits, and all these other kind of drop-in and webinars, as you said, recorded, available, you can reference later. And thanks for hitting all those ease of PDF form editing for folks here that are checking those out as well. So yeah, I would open up to members after just a quick comment that we obviously try to get guest presentations. There's a lot of timely information here that Marvin had shared, and previews of things to come. So, and I know Bob mentioned in the past about ADA design requirements. And so those are certainly things we wanted to highlight as part of this as well. But any questions, comments from members on any of the manuals or updates that were discussed here by Marvin today? Oh, yes, and free. That's always good, Marvin. These services are entirely free. Municipalities don't have to pay anything. They can get some outside expertise brought in to look at situations and offer all the training and resources. Maybe in case there are any other pop up in the next minute, the MUTCD changes, is there anything in that, Marvin, to address concerns folks have had about reliance on the 85th percentile speed?
Yeah, great question. There is actually in the MUTCD related to how we set speed limits, it does recommend a more contextual approach to it. So rather than just looking at 85th percentile speed, so therefore that's how I'm going to set the speed limit, right? Which is the traditional approach as to how we set speed limits, not just in our state, but every other state as well. So the MUTCD does have guidance on using a more contextual approach, which means looking at land use, looking at non-motorized users as well, right? And just because you don't have sidewalks, it does not mean you don't have pedestrians or even bicycle activity in the area, right? So again, that is something that was a very important aspect of the MUTCD, and quite frankly, what a lot of us as practitioners have been asking as well, right? Sometimes we are restricted to what we can do based on standards set by the state and set by federal highways. So it was nice to see that as part of the MUTCD update.
Great, thank you. Anything additional from folks online that you wanted to ask of Marvin? Okay, if not, really appreciate the information. Presentation available obviously on the website as well, and feel free to follow up with Marvin if you have direct requests afterwards. So thanks again, Marvin, for joining us.
Of course, thanks for having me. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Too. We're up to item I, and this is for Kristen and Brian to cover long-range transportation plan updates, and I can go ahead and bring the PowerPoint up as well. Share screen, Marvin, stop.
While Steve said bringing that up before Brian starts, we're obviously in the midst of the LRTP update and getting close to the point where we need to have a draft ready, and we do have that. I think it's probably in the PowerPoint. Our next steering committee will be in October, but we will be presenting that draft plan to the steering committee and probably listed priorities project.
Thanks.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Just a few highlights and headlines from summarizing the work that our team's been involved in over the past couple of weeks since the previous update that Kristen gave at the May meeting. I think most of the highlights are shown here on this slide. It encapsulates the work that we've been doing here over the past couple of weeks. And I'll just touch on a number of these as we go through the briefing here this morning, just to give you an overview of where we've been over the past several weeks and then look ahead and where we need to be. As Kristen mentioned, we have a steering committee meeting scheduled for early October, so there's a number of things we need to do to get ready for that. Start pulling some things together into some semblance of a draft final plan and get ready for steering committee review and go from there. So I'll just walk through the slide deck here, Steve. Go ahead. Beginning with the STC survey. I think we had mentioned last time that every other year as part of the biennial update, the 12-year program, PennDOT's program center, the 12-year program division works with them in implementing a statewide survey. And so we looked at that as another point of input for this plan. So we worked with the 12-year program division and gathering all of the feedback, public feedback that originated from within the 8-county MPO region. And so we have collected that. We've summarized the responses that have come in. You see some of them there. We had over 100 responses that came in from across the region. So again, this is something that the state has been doing, dating back to 2013. So it's a tremendous resource for MPOs like SEDA COG to be able to take advantage of that. I think it's really been a way for PennDOT really to add capacity, to the MPO's program. And so we've certainly tried to take advantage of that and summarizing public preferences for transportation throughout the region. The next slide, just wanted to highlight what we heard, what people from within the SEDA COG MPO region had to say. The chart on the right there, most of the responses were relative to our pavements and bridges, congestion, probably no surprise there. What was interesting to me, though, were the results in the pie chart on the left, and we're seeing this in other regions across the state as well, with increasing percentages of members of the public who are saying that maintenance should be one of our priorities. I think earlier in my career, you probably wouldn't have seen numbers like this. I think you probably would have seen more interest in adding capacity, bypasses, and things of that nature. But we're seeing high numbers of people who are stressing the need to maintain what we have. So higher percentages of people who indicated maintenance, Technology also scored very high there. You see 21%, ties in with some of the stuff that Kristen was talking about earlier with the regional operations plan. So I think we're seeing a public that is becoming more and more savvy with regard to what it is we're able to do and what we need to do in the future in terms of improving our overall transportation system. I think our time really this summer has been dominated by our work on the functional classification, review of the region's functional classification scheme. I know we've coordinated with everyone in this room on that front. As we got into these meetings, I always like to begin with this table for the benefit of those on the call who weren't part of these meetings. We began with a look at what FHWA's recommendations are for the array of our various classifications of roadway. You know, what share should we have of principal arterials or minor arterials and so on and so forth. And as we met with the county planning directors earlier this summer, you know, we really found that all of the counties within the MPO region, as well as the MPO itself collectively, you know, we are within those recommended thresholds that FHWA has published. So that's the good news. And I think it underscores the fact that as we look at making changes to the region's functional classification scheme, we're just looking at fine tuning. This is not a major overhaul. We're just looking at fine tuning and honing minor changes. And indeed, a lot of the changes that were flagged or identified were relatively minor in nature. So over the past couple of weeks, we've met with all but one of the MPO counties. So it's an opportunity for us to sit down with each one of the county planning directors and just to be able to say, hey, here's what we're seeing. Do you agree? Are there different things that are happening on the ground there, you know, beside these different roadway segments that would really help inform any proposed changes there to the functional classification? So throughout our work there are a number of roadway segments that are being proposed for upgrades. There are fewer that are being proposed for downgrades. And then another part of this exercise was looking at some locally owned roadways that are being examined for potential addition to the federal aid system. So it's not a situation where the ownership would change, just that it would remain a locally owned roadway and become eligible for federal aid. So there were a number of those as well that we're looking at. So from here, we're going to be taking the results of our analysis. We're going to be working with MPO staff as well as the PennDOT districts and ultimately PennDOT Central Office, Bureau of Planning and Research, and then at the end of the road, FHWA, with regard to these proposals that are being considered for changes to the region's functional classification. This group, you know, will have other opportunities down the road to take a look at what's being proposed as this process continues to unfold. Some of the other things we're looking at include more of the technical analysis. We have put together some web mapping that relates to some of the crowdsourced data and information that's available to us through information that comes, you know, from our cell phones. So we're looking at INRIX data that's available from PennDOT, data from the RIDIS platform. We've been working on developing some web maps related to that, which I think is going to be a helpful planning tool for the MPO as well as the county planning directors. And that includes information across, you know, a number of the bullet points that we see there on the screen, looking at things like truck travel time reliability, looking at the reliability of our roadways. It's very important for our shippers and receivers throughout the region. And we're going to be meeting with MPO staff here, I think next Thursday. We're going to be getting together to talk about the technical analysis in more detail and how it can be a better tool for the MPO going forward. Well, then finally, staff is continuing work on developing the various elements within the background profile. Various chapters are being written and compiled. We're almost at a point where we're ready to send all of the content to our document editor. We have a professional editor on the team who's going to be going through from a professional editing standpoint and getting it formatted into a public facing document. So I think we're almost at that point. Again, we'll continue our work on the functional classification review. Another update we would have for you involves the revenue forecast. Back in late May, PennDOT published financial guidance documentation that's going to be used by many individuals for the development of the 2027 update, the 2027 program. So that's going to be the best numbers that we have available to work with in order to do some funding projections out to the 2050 plan horizon year. We'll have more information on the revenue forecast at a future meeting. And then again, as Kristen indicated, we've already scheduled our next meeting with the steering committee. So that'll be coming up on October 8th. So everything that we're going to be doing here over the next couple of weeks is going to be really helping to inform our discussion at that meeting. So I will leave it there. If anyone has any questions or comments on the plan, what the process, what tasks we have coming up over the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that update. Thanks to everyone that's hit the functional class meeting. Those are always productive to learn, what's going on land use wise, to influence that process as well. So thanks to all the county planners for that and all the technical analysis and staff for everything that's being developed for this update. And we'll be looking and get to the comment period early next year and then approval in June, most likely. So thank you. Anything additional on that, Kristen, before we open it up to Dawn on the information from Lauren Bryson?
I just really appreciate everyone's cooperation in this process. Obviously, we need a lot of input from you, and I appreciate all the time that you put into it.
Great. Well, we were going to have Lauren Bryson also present here today on industrial development transportation needs, but Dawn's going to highlight a couple of bullet points from her and some resources she shared.
Can you bring up the one that says site competitiveness playbook together? Yeah, okay. Okay, for those of you that don't know, Lauren Bryson is the Executive Director of Locus Central Pennsylvania. They're primarily involved in industrial recruiting, site evaluations, and maybe given the time constraints here today, it's perhaps we'll be able to schedule her later on. She wanted to have an interactive discussion with us today, and I'll do my best to fill in here. I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so actually I have some background that relates specifically to what Lauren does and things I wanted to cover. So they do what's called a Central Pennsylvania Advisory Forum, and they had one earlier this year where one of the most interesting aspects of it, if you haven't attended it, is they bring in industrial recruiter site evaluation consultants from private companies to come in and present, how does all this work? What do you need to do to be more effective to try to bring new companies or to have companies be able to expand? How do you better coordinate and market them, regional industrial sites? There's a lot of US as well as foreign companies that are looking to open or relocate a facility. And we should be considered for that just as much as anybody else. But how do you do that? So the process is very competitive, not only within Pennsylvania, but particularly other states. So among other presenters, this slide came from one of the groups that was here, I think Deloitte, for the past meeting, and maybe you can't read over on rec. That's better, Steve, thanks. I'm not going to certainly go down all the things on here. You can see the main topics there. Be organized, showcase your properties as well as you can, and sustain the effort to be able to do things in the long term. I wanted to also point out, you can't read it really either, but at the bottom of it, it says this is a team effort. And right there, it says site competitiveness is a team sport. Not only just locally with groups that are right there, boots on the ground, but how do you work with regional and state partners? That's very important in Pennsylvania to be able to do that as much as possible. I went to one of these meetings just a few years ago, and one of the things that was talked about, in addition to transportation, most of you know that we have a natural gas cooperative here that SEDA COG operates, and we also have the SEDA COG Joint Rail Authority. So from my perspective, I wanted to attend that to look at how can we market sites related to the availability of natural gas. But we also have other important things that are related to transportation. The development of the CSVT is obviously highly significant. Steve Beatty, who's the director of the Joint Rail Authority, is also on this Focus Central Pennsylvania board, so he gets to be involved in these decisions as well. On the topic of transportation, particularly from highway transportation, our area of Pennsylvania is very strategically located for being attractive to people that are looking to come in to establish a business. We're only about 3 to 3.5 hours from the New York and Philadelphia markets. And if you want to throw in some other areas like Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh, and Cleveland, the ports that are on the East Coast, we have an advantage in transportation for that. That's one thing that's really important. So I wanted just to highlight a couple of the other things from the last form that she had in May. See if we got you to the right slide, Steve. Yeah, that's fine. So this is another chart that is titled Aligning Site Characteristics with Site Activities. So across the top on this table, there's different kinds of businesses, industries. And then down the left, what some of the attributes are that need to be discussed or addressed. Some of the things I wanted to point out right in the middle there down the left side is large acreage is often needed. We have an issue with that a lot of times in Pennsylvania because of our topography. You can see some of the large, for example, distribution warehousing facilities. We've been through this in talking about natural gas. In southeast Pennsylvania, not very far from here even, there's a lot more of those facilities than there are in central Pennsylvania. Topography is a limiting factor there for those size of the facilities. It's also recognized here in the middle, bulk cargo capable, and this rail and barge there. Well, rail is obviously the thing that's most important here. A lot of yeses across the line on that one as well. Right below that, it says high power capacity. So the two to point out right now that seem to be the most important are the two types of facilities that are on the far right, data centers and distribution and warehousing. So if you go across high power capacity, especially on data centers, that certainly has gotten so much publicity even this week from the meeting that took place in Pittsburgh about data centers and IT facilities and AI. That has a yes by it, very strong yes. That's a major factor to consider and to be able to address and to overcome. These data centers will be very power intensive. We've all been hearing about that, I think. So not too much more to say about it, but Pennsylvania needs to be well positioned in working with utility partners to be able to manage that. Right, the last one at the bottom is high gas capacity. So that's not so much important for data centers or distribution or warehousing, but for some other industries. One of the first questions that developers who would be involved or companies that would be involved, we talked to a lot of different kinds, including indoor agriculture as an example. One of the first questions that, especially Grant being the president for a while of the gas cooperative would hear was, do you have natural gas and how can we get that thing? So we have a lot of things to consider when recruitment is going on. And we'll put the last slide, Steve, that you had on there. I thought what was also interesting is they had PPL come in and do a part of a study, I guess, to look at costs versus workforce. And just very basically and simply here, sites that are available in the central Pennsylvania region that Focus Central PA works with are the dark dots, and other comparable ones from other states, surrounding states mostly, but from some other areas are the light gray dots. So the quadrants there on the left side are lower quality sites. The top part of those are higher cost to develop, and the bottom part is lower cost. And over on the right is higher quality and higher cost. Pennsylvania has been noted in this study, but other places too, as sometimes being at a workforce disadvantage versus other states. We have a lot more unionization than some other states, but we have workforce strengths as well. We have some good resources available to us, like the training facilities at Penn College. Penn State is involved in a lot of training facilities as well and training programs. So we have some advantages on this chart that you can see that maybe some of the sites are a little lower quality than some other ones in other states, but they can also be developed at lower cost. So the important part is to try to emphasize what the advantages are, and be aware of those when companies are approached or talked about in relocating. I'd like to just wind up with a couple other real quick comments. One thing that was mentioned, not on these slides, but in some of the information that Lauren sent on, is that air service accessibility can be an issue. We have that, I think, as an issue in central Pennsylvania, where the closest airports, Williamsport, State College, and even Harrisburg, maybe a little bit at a disadvantage. In cases where companies coming in, that might be more important. There has been some discussion in the past year or so through Appalachian Regional Commission and some regional people that Betsy Lockwood has talked to about the possibility of developing a freight hub in Pennsylvania, in either our area or close by. So these are the kind of things that are important to pay attention to, and to make sure that other things can be considered in the transportation sector. Where I live over in State College, the airport authority is being very active at trying to recruit some new airlines coming in, which is a good thing for everybody as long as you're in decent driving distance there. So last thing to point out too, most of you know Betsy Lockwood, but one thing I wanted to reinforce is the mention that she's probably the primary contact at SEDA COG for industrial development questions or possibilities. She's the lead person on the comprehensive economic development strategy, the SEDS program that I think everybody is aware of through EDA, and take advantage of her capabilities too in any kind of discussions or ideas or possibilities related to industrial development. So I know what Lauren wanted to do was to have an interactive discussion, and maybe we can have her back to do that at another point. I think she would be great to have back here too. So I just wanted to give you an overview of the kind of things that she's been working with on these forums, but also in her everyday business. And a lot of things are happening in our area. We just need to be approaching things in a very intelligent, coordinated manner. And it's good to be able to have some of this pointed out. So I'll stop there. If anybody has any questions, I think my Holiday Inn Express expertise has run out, but I appreciate the chance to just go over a few things today.
Yeah, thanks for pinch hitting there, and certainly if there's time availability, interest, we can work to have Lauren, those of you that work with her in your economic development, industrial development hats, I think you're kind of plugged into some of that stuff, but I'll just plug also Betsy Lockwood. She's going to be updating the region's comprehensive economic development strategy. So we'll be tied into that process as transportation staff as well, and a lot of you that serve on her committee. So more to come on some of these topics also through that forum. And then Don, if you don't mind going into the CHAPE,
Sure.
the community charging program.
Let's change my hat here real quick. A couple of brief updates on the electric vehicle charging station status and what we're working with the group at PennDOT. Another acronym to throw out that we've said before is the NEVI program. That's the federally sponsored program that comes through the states on establishing charging stations. And in the last couple of years, PennDOT has been working on putting stations in major corridors throughout the state. They're now up to 18 of those stations that they've been involved with and sponsoring and helping get up to date and funding, not up to date, but up to speed and funding for those. So you've got 18 that are up and operational around the state now. What we wanted to give you a brief update on is the community charging station part of the NEVI program is what we've been concentrating on the last several months. We're coming up on a deadline here at the end of July where we have had community meetings, we've had outreach to all of you through these meetings and other places in general to come up with a couple of things that will be submitted to PennDOT by the end of the month. One is a list of community charging, what they're calling use case rankings. And what those are is they've given a starter list and a good pick list of what kind of places are the most appropriate for them to be involved with in communities, not really talking about corridors so much here, but in communities to locate charging stations. So we'll be submitting a list of about 12 different those use cases to PennDOT and assigning a priority scale. So the ones we have as the top right now are public parking lots in cities and towns, destination charging like parks, recreation facilities, special events, shopping centers and retail locations, and healthcare facilities. There are others on the list too, which does not mean that those would be considered for establishing the stations, but these are the ones that have risen to the top pretty much. Along with that, the second part is submitting a list of specific locations that have been identified in our meetings or in the 2024 timeframe, we completed an EV charging station study where we did some site visits, went out and looked at them that you've seen in our meetings here. So we have a list of about, it'll probably be about 20. We're still in the last stages of refining things before we submit this. But there will be some specific locations and also a little bit more general, but downtowns in some of our communities to do that. So those will be submitted to PennDOT along with other MPOs around the state submitting the same kind of list. PennDOT will start working through those to prioritize and come up with a game plan on how those stations can be implemented through funding. The last thing I wanted to mention though is the question that has come up frequently that we monitor as best as we can is what's happening with the federal government and their sponsorship of these kind of programs through electric vehicles. It seems like it changes about every week. In late June, there was a federal judge in one of the states who ordered the administration to resume distributing money for EV chargers that had already been committed. Just a couple of days ago, we got an update from Colton Brown, who is our main contact at PennDOT for the NEVI program. And he said that in their view of things right now, it's still full speed ahead, go forward with the plans as they are. Until told otherwise, we've been hearing that for months right now. And again, there's still many other things that are going on. But we hope that submitting these lists to PennDOT will keep the ball rolling down there at PennDOT, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that these places and these kind of facilities can still be looked at with sponsorship from funding to develop. So Steve and I are putting final touches on these lists, and again, we'll be submitting them probably in this coming week. So did you want to add anything, Steve?
No, just that PennDOT will do the contracting for these community charging stations. But we can provide these recommendations. Hopefully they can group them together and we'll see these investments occur. I think they're off the interstate more into the community level. So hopefully that process will play out. Our social pinpoint page will share the latest information we have. And if you have anything, please get to Don AMCP, any comments on these tables 3 and 4 in the packet, because the deadline is July 31st, PennDOT. If we can do it next week, we'd like to get in ahead of maybe the flood of a bunch of them going in at the same time across the state. So. Any questions for Don on EV charging? We're in the back stretch here. Item K is the local bridge prioritization process. And I'll just mention that the criteria we're proposing as the change up here is on page 52. We were referencing all the county coordination meetings for the TIP, indicating that the decision lens tool was going way. PennDOT's enterprise license that's been made available to us will expire in September. And so we thought, let's take a look at the criteria, refine them, simplify them, because a lot of the things within decision lens were a little bit more complicated, require a lot of effort for us to reach out with the counties and municipalities to verify some of the more granular data and land use related concerns. So we looked at this at staff level and considered waiting for the county priority. Obviously, that's top notch and what you look at and assess with your bridge engineers to weight that. And then the bridge condition, if there's a weight restriction on the bridge, and then the volume and usage of the average daily traffic. But we also wanted to allocate points, obviously, if there's no detour available at the dead end, or if there's more sizable detour lanes, and then to give point totals for the local match. Those that are committed and they're pledging and they'd be able to advance it on the tip for a normal 80, 15, 5 with a 5% local, or if they're gonna go the retroactive reimbursement route or 20% match there. We wanted to do that. We shared this with everyone in the packet and with the district staff, made slight revisions to the criteria based on district input. And that being the county priority, just to put out there for fairness, we would expect you to look at the totality of local bridges, not just county owned, but assess, what you're hearing from the locals, what your bridge engineer look at, their township or borough owned bridges as well. And then for the detour length, Randy Albert raising that for, especially they see it in other planning partner regions where there's no detour available to those dead end locations. So we elevated that within the criteria point total there to address that. So let's put this out. If there's any questions, comments, we can take a look at certainly changes, but this is what we proposed to take through scoring, what we've got from each of the counties, and all those direct requests that we've got from municipalities. We would run those through this process as well as candidates for this tip update, and then hopefully break them in to their score totals, and then like high, medium, low, where there's kind of natural breaks in the results. So questions, comments, please, John.
I guess my first question is that first criteria, sufficiency rating less than 80%. I'm just curious where that number came from. At 75% sufficiency rating on local bridges, pretty darn good. And I know in Union County, we won't be replacing anything at that level. Is there any, rationale why that wasn't lower?
That's just an absolute, to even be considered, it has to be that. We're not gonna consider anything. So if they don't have that threshold,
Should it be dropped maybe lower for local bridge?
we could maybe hear from the districts on that, since this would be maybe some rehab candidates, it might be a little bit lesser if they need some attention. But if folks think there should be like a 70 or 60 or something, we can certainly consider that as an absolute criterion to even be considered. But some of that is tied to the federal funding. You just need that rating to be able to qualify for the rehab or replacement.
I guess the other thought is, county priorities given the same amount of points as bridge condition, which to me, we should be replacing the worst structures in the region, as a priority. So I don't know. It seems like we're getting away from that a little bit by giving the counties prioritization just as much weight as how good or bad the structure is. I don't know.
And and the former one, if it was a top 3, it got some weighting criteria. But if you think we should drop that to like a 5, 3, 1 type of deal, or if others weigh in on that.
That's what I think. Just something that jumped out. Sure.
Yeah, that's part of a nod to all the attention and work that you all do in your process, and just how comprehensive that is in your analysis and what you establish as the rankings. But other comments, input on that as far as the county priority point total weighting?
So Sean, you were talking about lowering the county priority points and upping maybe the condition.
Yes.
I'd agree with that. I mean, the county sometimes doesn't even, at the county level, sometimes our municipalities don't really even reach out to me about the bridges, and I don't know what the conditions are. I think, because they're looked at by Stahl Schaefer in Snyder County, I think the condition of the bridge should be more prioritized than what the county, because I don't know. So, I mean, I shouldn't have the weight that the condition is, that the engineer knows it is. Just my opinion. I agree with Sean.
I think there's some bias too, like in our county, we have county bridges that we own, and then there's municipal bridges. Oh, if I work for the county commissioners and they want their bridges replaced, which bridge are we gonna prioritize more? The municipal one that needs replaced, or the county owned one? So it becomes a little bit of a fairness issue, I think, too, can weigh into it. If you're just taking the county's opinion, because we're gonna rank ours to the priority, probably not the municipal one. Hold on.
Yeah, that's why we're trying to consider them all in that process. You could say, hey, this is so important, this one's on a township boom based on economic development, land use, and it'd be part of that. But we can certainly look at reducing that point total for county priority. If that's kind of the grand consensus here. And I think someone has their hand raised. Please go ahead.
Yeah, this is Jeff, and I'm not sure if this will impact this in the future. in the federal One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the incentives for purchasing electric vehicles were changed. So that might be something to kind of watch in terms of just the usage, in terms of, I guess, which programs you prioritize, where there's some flexibility, just some thoughts there.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments on the bridge scoring here then as well on page 52? If not, we'll revise the county priority one. Others that we're just kind of floating, but they're hard to equally apply them for things like scour, the rating for scour, flooding history, and how you break that down in terms of intervals or impacts would be hard. And then also the land use or economic development impact, which can be a little bit harder to pull into a specific, criterion or easily get consistent, results across the entire region. But those are other factors we've thought of.
I'm just wondering why we need a point at all for a county priority, because you're going to list your bridges and state that you want them accomplished. This is the worst one we got. That's our number one. This is the next worst. That's our number two. If we can get number three, we'll put it on there. But to have points associated to it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Priorities are going to be established by need. The engineer's going to tell you which ones are in worse condition.
But I think Sean's point is the point there is that if the county owns the bridge, they're gonna prioritize that no matter how bad the locally owned bridge is.
That's whether you want your job or not. Unfortunately, Montour owns all of the bridges in Montour County.
What they would break.
But I understand.
That would eliminate that, though. If you're saying just not be bothered with the points, then that bias goes away. Because
That's one of the things I'm thinking about. Your engineers are gonna tell you which bridges are good, which ones are bad. I can't go out there and tell you which one's bad, other than I look at them. The car falls off, then it's bad. I just, I'm trying to understand why the county has point priority when you're going to establish good, bad, and indifferent. Just my opinion.
No, I know what you're saying now. I agree.
Lisa, you had a comment on that as well?
Yeah, I just know locally in Bloomsburg in the last rainfall, there was quite like a pileup of debris on both bridges going out towards Steve Shannon and then the Fernville Bridge. When we talk about the maintenance costs and what goes along with that, I get that there's maintenance for the bridge itself, but it sounds like debris is usually on the land, whoever owns it, abutting, that waterway. So I don't know if there's any changes on the MPO board to consider that. I just know at Columbia County, they had what was called EDCDI funds, and it sounds like those have kind of been spent. And when I look at who owns, the land going to the bridge, some of that is like a private owner, and then some of it is a county parcel. So I just wanted to bring that up as a discussion point.
Okay, thank you. And there is a little bit of difference across the region. Obviously, in Brad's case, they have no county-owned bridges, so a little bit different kind of conversation, somewhat. In Clinton, very few as well. So it's hard to apply that, but we were showing that deference, what was in the criteria before, all that you invest in the process, and the same issue we kind of review or rank things for your comprehensive plan, to kind of give that emphasis area was kind of the thought process there. But if you either want to reduce it or substitute something else in place, maybe just another minute or two for that, for the county priority. Others thoughts on that process or what we should do with the county priority? You think just reduction so it's not weighted as highly, or substitute something else entirely for county priority?
I think, just personally, I think bridge conditions should rate more than the county's priority, because I think that should be, if any one of us are honest, we're gonna tell you that we don't know. Our engineer's gonna tell us which one needs work. So the priority points, if you're gonna have points, I think they should be lowered.
And that we kind of established in each of the calls, we got the top three essentially from all of those, from each of the county, what you would rank them in order. So we had carried that through this process, and then, if there was something else that entered into the equation, but, how about for a scour, maybe more for the district folks? Is there something you think that's important enough to have as a criterion on this, or, kind of leave the other condition items as they are?
Steve, this is Mark. I think that bridge condition rating is going to take in the scour, the interest of scour and the scour rating.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mark. Do you have a comment on that sufficiency rating as well, since you just had spoken up? To leave that absolute at 80%, or based on kind of federal funding codes, eligibility, or other emphasis, do you think we should look at that number being different to be considered in the pool?
Steve, were you asking that back to me?
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. It definitely, yeah, we are seeing more of a focus on rehabilitation. So having that minimum or the sufficiency rating less than 80 allows for that type of a factor, and allows for those types of efforts to take place a little bit sooner for rehab, which then extends the life cycle of a bridge.
Yeah, no, we'll keep that in mind, just based on that case. There's a local urban doing something minor that's a rehab, and they can still qualify. If that's a priority, then okay. Thank you, Mark. Great, thanks. So we can tweak, revise that. If we need to send up follow-ups, we'll do so, and then look to start scoring those for this round. And then come September, is when we look to get endorsement of the priorities and have those in consideration for the TIP as it's developed and built. In this section, we also just include, Brian already get the STC State Transportation Commission results. So there's your little snapshot of the region of those 86 mappable concern areas, interactive maps online. If you want to click away or download the data sets as well, and some analysis, in tandem with the long range plan. We also put highlights related to the 12-year program update in here on the financial side. So where we are with the timing, I'll just refer you off to those, but essentially the big highlights are flat federal funding expected because the transportation bill is due to expire September 30th of next year. So it's hard to work within that scenario and project out and forecast. In our region, we'll get just slightly less allocated compared to the prior TIP. So we'll be working closely with all the districts on the cost estimates on projects that need to carry over, and then any of these new local bridges or others that we can fit in the available funding if it's constrained, obviously. Then the general and procedural guidance kind of highlights are there as well, describing what's relied upon. The other thing I'll mention there is just what we've seen out of the federal government, some of the environmental justice type concerns that be now more community demographic analysis. So we'll just kind of take a look at that so that things are in compliance with the recent executive orders, and how we look at that for analysis and mapping purposes for the projects and any potential impacts. Then the schedule is on page 57. So you kind of see where we are here currently. We'll probably the next main milestone will be that September 19th meeting to endorse the local bridge priorities. Safety cans are being submitted here throughout the summer months as well for using the HSIP funds like Mark referenced earlier for the high friction surface treatment projects. And then by the end of the calendar year, the draft TIP will be submitted to the PennDOT central office team. Early next year, be meetings to talk about those and the carryover projects, cost estimates. And then next spring is when we look to open the TIP for public comment, and most likely have a meeting in June to approve the draft TIP for the region. So that took us through the local bridge prioritization and the TIP update. Any questions on that? Okay, next is just a verbal on the active transportation committee. Just highlight the next committee meeting is on August 13th. If you're not on the group for that distribution list, let us know if you want to receive the materials. The speakers be determined, finalizing that for the guest parts, but kind of the other normal business will be covered. And I'll just highlight quickly action items, things we've worked on, the bicycle crash cards and stickers that we were working through this committee on developing. They were finished and ordered, so we'll have those available. If you want some, feel free to let us know. We were getting 1,000 prints of each of those little wallet cards, the information that people should be aware of if they're involved in a bicycle crash, what to record. And then there's a QR code. They can go to a Microsoft form and provide the information there to log that. And we'll be able to have access to that, not for anything, proprietary or personally identifiable information, but just where, crash reporting is occurring. So that's a nice win, and we'll get that out to various groups, organizations to hand out to the public. And then the sidewalk inventory by our intern was essentially completed, but there were 3 gaps in Northumberland County. So we'll share that mapping and information with you here, hopefully in the near future after including those 3 in Northumberland County. And that's again noting if there's a sidewalk on either side of the street or not available, nothing condition wise, just availability of sidewalks across the region. So I'll hold there in the interest of time and ask if there's any questions about the Active Transportation Committee proceedings. Okay, we're up to item M then, and that's our normal member forum. Anything for the good of the order, anything we haven't already talked about that members would like to express or share at this time? And I don't think there's any.
Yeah, this is
Oops,
Jeff.
go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, do we have any updates on the Lewistown Amtrak station at this point?
Nothing I'm aware of. Anything additional? Jim's here in the room.
The mayor indicated that they're under construction for the deck expansion and the ADA improvements, and also the road that goes in the gateway to the train station is called Helen Street, and I think the township is applying for DCD MTF money for enhancements to that street corridor. So there is activity currently going on there.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Anything additional from in the room or virtual or the member forum? Okay, if not, we look for a motion to adjourn here at 11:52 and reconvene on September 19th. So move. Thanks, Sean. Second by Lincoln. All in favor, please say aye. Right, thank you all. Have a great rest of your day and a nice weekend. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Everyone. Just go up there.
Thank you.
Just get out and get away. Sorry, it's linked to resources being shared there. Looks like the chat. We're addressing people. Comments and then work stuff for the.
Take very exhausted and drive them. Flying is so inconvenient.
Like that, choose things that way when you get there. You got your first.